You know that romantic image we all have of an author, tucked away in some quiet cabin, totally alone, just them and their masterpiece? Well, what if I told you that for today's most successful authors, the most powerful tool in their arsenal isn't a fancy pen or a laptop, but a person? Yeah, we're talking about the secret weapon that's powering the indie author revolution, the virtual assistant.
So, let's just ask the question right out of the gate. Is that whole idea of the lone, solitary author just a myth? I mean, in a world where you have to be constantly connected and churning out content, can an author really go it alone and expect to succeed? Well, the material we're digging into today suggests the answer is a pretty clear no.
And this is why. The job has completely changed. A successful author today isn't just an artist anymore. They're an author CEO. They're the head of a small, and sometimes not so small, media company. And you know what? Every single CEO needs a team to back them up. So this brings us to the core problem, the fundamental conflict that every single modern author has to deal with. It's what we're calling the author-CEO paradox. And here it is in a nutshell, the production-promotion paradox. It's this impossible juggling act. See, to make a living, you have to be writing the next book, but to sell the books you've already written, you have to be marketing them, constantly. We're talking social media, ads, newsletters, the works. And those two jobs are in a constant, brutal tug-of-war for an author's time and, maybe more importantly, their creative energy. So how do you solve an impossible problem? Well, you find a clever workaround. And in this case, the solution is something called the operational wedge. And you guessed it, that wedge is the virtual assistant, or VA. This quote just nails it. A VA's main job is to drive a wedge right between the business side of being an author and the actual writing. They create this protective bubble, this firewall that shields the author's creative brain from all the administrative noise. They handle the business of writing, so the author can just focus on the act of writing.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but what does this operational wedge actually do day to day? Let's open up the playbook and get into the nitty-gritty of what authors, especially indie authors, are handing off to their VAs. First up, the basics. Pure administration. The best way to think about this is that the VA acts as a human noise filter. They're the ones sorting through the chaos of the author's inbox, scheduling interviews, keeping track of expenses. Every little email they handle is one less distraction, one less interruption that pulls the author out of their creative flow. It's literally about buying back focus.
Now, for indie authors, this is where a VA becomes an absolute game changer. Since there's no big publishing house handling things, the VA steps up and becomes the production engine. They're like a project manager for the book itself. They coordinate with editors and cover designers. They handle the complicated formatting for ebooks and print books, and they dig into all that crucial metadata and keyword research that can make or break a book's visibility online.
And then there's marketing, and this part is absolutely massive. A good VA basically becomes the author's in-house marketing department. They're the ones creating graphics, scheduling out social media posts, running the email newsletter, and managing the whole process of getting early review copies out to a team of dedicated fans. This is all stuff that is non-negotiable for success, and it's also a massive time suck that a VA can just take right off the author's plate.
All right, I know what you're thinking. This sounds amazing, but where do you even find one of these magical people? And how in the world do you pay for it? So let's talk about sourcing and the return on investment.
So there are really two main paths authors take. First, you can hire a superfan, someone from your own reader community. The huge plus here is that they already know and love your work. They're passionate. The downside? Well, professional boundaries can get a little blurry, and that can get complicated. The other route is to hire a pro from an agency that specializes in author assistance. They'll cost more, for sure, but they come in knowing the industry, so there's basically zero training required.
But how do you justify the cost? Honestly, it's just simple math. It's all about opportunity cost. Let's say your time spent writing, your most valuable activity, earns you $50 an hour. Does it make any sense for you to spend that $50 an hour time on a $20 an hour admin task? No way. By delegating, you're not losing $20 an hour. You're gaining a net $30 in value by freeing yourself up to do what only you can do. Right.
And this table really brings it home. Look at scenario A. You do it all yourself. Zero cost, but also zero growth. Now, scenario B, you make a modest investment, maybe $4,000 a year on an offshore VA. That could free you up to write 1 or 2 extra books a year, potentially adding tens of thousands of dollars to your income. It really reframes the whole thing.
Hiring a VA isn't an expense, it's an investment in your own productivity.
So what does this all point to? Where is the world of authorship heading? Well, we're seeing a really clear trend toward the professionalization of the author. That old image of the chaotic artist is fading, and it's being replaced by the disciplined business owner.
And really, if you take just one thing away from this whole explainer, let it be this. The successful modern author is almost never acting alone. The solitary writer is a relic. If you want to build a career that can grow and last in today's market, you have to build a team. Delegation isn't a weakness, it's the engine that powers your growth. But as we look to the future, there's a new question starting to bubble up. With authors already using AI tools for a lot of these tasks, you have to wonder, is the next generation's secret weapon not a virtual assistant, but an artificial one? What do you think?